Hey, monster fans. We're going to take a look at one of the Skywald magazine titles. This is called Nightmare. This is the first title that Skywald did as in the magazine format. And this is the first issue right here. This title ran from 1970 to 1975. There were 23 issues in this title, as well as an annual, a winter special, besides the number 23, which is also called another, different winter special, and a yearbook. So we're going to cover all that. Like I said, this is the first issue here, and you got the Skywald version of the heap on the cover there. This cover is by Brendan Lynch. Interior art by Don Heck and Mike Esposito, Jack Katz, Norman Nodell, and Vince Alacia. Bill Everett, Ross Andrew, Joe Kubert from a reprint, Sid Shores and Tom Palmer. And it wouldn't be long before Skywald would come out with another title that ran concurrently with this called Psycho. I'll be doing another video on those. This is number 2 of Nightmare with a great Boris Vallejo cover. Art by Ross Andrew and Mike Esposito. Sid Shores, A.C. Hollingsworth in a reprint. Bill Everett did a Creature from the Black Lagoon pinup in this issue that's really pretty sweet. Dan Adkins, Norman Nodell and Vince Alacia in a reprint, and Gene Fawcett in a reprint. There's number 3, another good cover by Boris Vallejo. Art by Tom Sutton, Dan Adkins, Rich Buckler, Serge Morin, Paul Reinman, Mike Esposito, Bruce Jones as Philip Rowland, Chick Stone, Jack Katz, Frank Giacoia. Number 4. This cover is by Harry Rosenbaum. Art by Ralph Reese, Jack Abel, Dick Ayers, Mike Esposito, Bill Everett, Tom Sutton as Sean Todd. Yeah, and Sutton was also credited as Sean Todd in number 3 as well. And I'll tell you why in a second. And also Tom Palmer, Serge Morin, and Dan Adkins. The reason Tom Sutton called himself Sean Todd to do these is because he was also working for Warren at the time. And Jim Warren, in his best tyrannical assertions, he said that when you work for us, you don't work for anybody else. So when those guys would moonlight, they would call themselves something else. So there you go. There's Tom Sutton credited as Sean Todd. And I heard that those are the names of his sons is the reason he came up with that. Okay, here is number 5. It's pretty gorgeous. Another Boris Vallejo cover. Art by Howard Schull, Ralph Reese, Carlos Garzon, Bruce Jones, Rich Buckler, Tom Sutton as Sean Todd, Serge Morin, Dan Adkins, Jack Katz, Jack Abel, and Doug Wildey. That's something. Doug Wildey, he was the guy behind Johnny Quest for Hanna-Barbera. And these Skywalds, sometimes they get kind of a bad rap among collectors. And a lot of people are critical of these, but I love them. I think they're right up there with the Warrens. A lot of people want to kind of, they want to lump them in with the, the Erie Pubs and the Stanleys and some of the really lowbrow stuff. But I think these are really good, I mean, they can stand with the Warrens. This is number 6. This cover is by Jeff Jones. Interior art, Mike Kaluta, Ernie Cullen, Jack Abel, Carlos Garzon, Larry Todd, Doug Wildy again, and Pat Boyette. The number 7, cover by Alberto Pugilar, and this interior art by Pablo Marcos, Farron Sostris, Amador Garcia, Serg Morin, Donald Brown, Pablo Marcos, Francisco Cueto, Dennis Fujitaki, Raymond Torrance. And Raymond Torrance also worked for Warren a lot. I think it was a little later. Number 8, cover by Vicente Segreas. Art by Pablo Marcos, Felipe de la Rosa, Farron Sostris, Dan Sevilla, Sid Shores as Jim Elder, Dan Adkins, Bruce Jones, Chick Stone, and Farron Sostris. Well, he's on there twice because he did art in 2 different stories. Now, this cover, I believe, was used for the cover of the book, The Illustrated Horror Mood of Skywald, that I will be showing in a later video. That was written by Al Hewetson and finished just before he passed away. And it's great if you're a Skywald fan. Number 9. This cover is by Jose Morales. Art by Pablo Marcos, Jesus Duran, Felipe de la Rosa, Melo Cintron, Cesar Lopez, Raymond Torrance, and Villanova, and Amador Garcia, and Bernie Wrightson even did an illustration in this one. Now, this issue features the first Shoggoths, and that's the Skywald, interpretation of the H.P. Lovecraft, the Shoggoths from the H.P. Lovecraft stories, and also the first Gargoyles. That was an ongoing series in these magazines. And that's a key. Better slab that. Okay. Here's number 10. This cover is by Ken Kelly. And interior art, Pablo Marcos, Bernie Wrightson, Wes Zarinas, Manel Ferrer, Villanova, Melo Cintron, Ernie Cullen, Ruben Lara Romero, Felipe de la Rosa, and Basil Wolverton. So you can tell these things had a wide variety of really good artists. And a lot of those Spanish names, they're guys, I guess, from Spain mostly, and maybe from the Philippines in some cases. Anyway, these magazines had great art, man. It's number 11. This cover is by Jose Antonio Domingo as J.A.D. Now, he's one of my favorites. Look at the zombies in the background on that. I mean, is that not beautiful? Jose Antonio Domingo. Art by Ricardo Villamonte, Jose Rubio, Jesus Suso Rego, Mara Nava, Melo Cintron, Antonio Burrell, Gene Day, Pablo Marcos. There's number 12. This cover is by Vicente Segreas. Interior art, Farron Sostris, Wes Zerenius, Chick Stone, Villanova, Antonio Burrell, and Pablo Marcos. Now that's a beaut right there. Number 13. Cover is by Vicente Sagreus. Art by Wes Arenas, Jesus Duran, Villanova, Jose Rubio, Felipe de la Rosa, Ricardo Villamonte, Francisco Cuerto, and Melo Centron. Number 14, cover by Villanova. That's a freaky one where the Earth is getting destroyed, you know, in a nuclear holocaust. The interior art by Melo Centron, Felipe de la Rosa, Jack Katz, Ricardo Villamonte, Wes Arenas, Jose Rubio, Domingo Gomez, Bruce Jones, Ricardo Villamonte. He has a 2-page story in here that features the creature from the Black Lagoon, Jesus Susorego. And number 15, cover by Ken Kelly. Art by Emilio Bernardo, Antonio Burrell, Jose Rubio, Domingo Gomez, Francisco Cueto, Jose and Cesar Lopez, Wes Arenas, and Melo Centron. Now that is definitely inspired by Christopher Lee's Dracula. It can't be anything else. It's really cool though. Before we go any further, I'll explain what these framing pieces are. This is a book called The Complete Saga of the Victims. It's pretty hard to get now, but it reprints all the chapters from the different issues of the continuing story of the victims. It's a couple of girls that continually get in really bad trouble. And it also contains the last chapter, which was finished but never printed because Skywald went out of business pretty quick in '75 when Marvel flooded the magazine racks with material and put a lot of the monster magazines off the shelves pretty much. They couldn't get distribution. I mean, they had spotty distribution before at Skywald, and it all ended at that point in '75. So the last chapter of the Saga of the Victims never got printed, and it is in that book. And it's out of print and kind of hard to get. I'll be covering that in a later video as well. And of course, we've got the Cthulhu Bank here on the right from Diamond Select. I believe that came out in 2015. And you know, I really love it, man. It's a dead ringer for that little idol that the Cthulhu cult worshipped in the swamps of Louisiana in the original Call of Cthulhu story by Lovecraft. All right, moving on. This is number 16. This beautiful cover again by favorite Jose Antonio Domingo as J.A.D. Interior art in that one, Ricardo Villamonte, Jose Rubio, Jesus Susorego, Mauro Nava, Melo Centron, Antonio Burrell, Gene Day, and Pablo Marcos. Now this is absolutely gorgeous, and it's my favorite Skywald cover, and it's one of my favorite Monster Magazine covers of any, or just comic covers in general. This is by Sebastian Bowada, and it's just the blue, you know, background and the monster on the chain and the girl, and it just all goes together, and I just think it's gorgeous. Anyway, the interior art in that issue, Jesus Susorego, Ricardo Villamonte, Jesus Duran, Ruben Sosa, Lombardia, Domingo Gomez. And that has a Christopher Lee interview in it. And there is number 18. And that cover is by Jose Antonio Domingo as well, and he's credited as J.A.D. again. Interior art, Cesar Lopez, Jesus Susorego, Jesus Duran, Ricardo Villamonte, Jose Cardona and Emilio Bernardo. And here is number 19. Yeah, that definitely is inspired by a certain creature from the Black Lagoon, probably. But, you know, it's a nice twist on it. Beautiful cover. And again, by Sebastian Bowada. And the interior art, Ferran Sostras, Ricardo Belmonte, Alfonso Font, Jose Cardona, Jesus Duran, Melo Cintron. This is another gorgeous one, number 20, and it's by Sebastian Bowada. He could really draw women. He was just, you know, it's fine art. It's a Monster magazine cover, but it's fine art. And interior art by Ferran Sostras, Jose Cardona, Emilio Bernardo, Luis Collado, Ricardo Belmonte, John Byrne, that's his first pro work in that issue, and Melo Cintron. And there is number 21. That cover is by Jose Mireles. Nice vampire cover. Interior art, Jose Cardona, Jack Katz in a reprint, Frank Giacoia in a reprint, Mike Kaluta in a reprint, Tom Sutton in a reprint as David Cook. He always had to call himself something else when he moonlighted with Skywald because of Jim Warren. And Sid Shores in a reprint as David Cook. They both teamed up on the same story. I guess Sid Shores did the inks, and they just credited the art to fake David Cook. Jeff Jones in a reprint, Doug Wildey in a reprint, and Pablo Marcos in a reprint. As you can tell, things were getting mostly reprinted at this point. Getting really near the end of the run now. This is number 22. This cover is by Salvador Faba. Interior art by Melo Cintron, Domingo Gomez, Jose Martin Sori as Bob Martin, Enrique Puchadas as Ernie Puchadas, Jose Cardona, Ferran Sostras, Gene Day, Jesus Duran, Francisco Agras as John Agras, Cesar Lopez. And this is number 23. It's the last issue. It's also the 1975 Nightmare Winter Special. And, you know, this, wow, I was looking at this guy up here on the left. That reminds me a lot of Beast of Blood. Not exactly, but it's pretty close. Anyway, the cover of this issue is Vicente Sagreus with Vicente Sagreus with Melo Cintron. As I guess it says insert painting, it must be that little bit right there that Cintron did. And art by Gene Day, Melo Cintron, Vicente Sagreus, Jose Martin Sori as Robert Martin, Gene Day again, Jose Maria Cardona as Andy Cardona, Candido Ruiz Puejo as Stan Connerty, Amado Garcia as Walter Fortis, and Fulgencio Cabarizio as Dennis Ford. I don't know if toward the end that maybe editorial, which, you know, was Al Hewetson, definitely, but maybe they wanted to start anglicizing some of those names. I don't know. But anyway, this is the last issue, so it didn't really matter. And this is the annual. This is, well, annual number 1. It's really the only annual, unless you count the yearbook as an annual also. But this cover is by Vicente Sagreus, art by Wes Zarenis, Ricardo Belmonte, Antonio Perez Garcia as Carrillo, Pablo Marcos, Bill Payne, Bruce Jones, Luis M. Roca, and Farron Sostris. And it's all original. There's no reprints in that. This is the 1973 winter special. This cover is by Ken Kelly. You notice this is early work by Ken Kelly, and he does beautiful stuff. I mean, he was an understudy of Frank Frazetta, but you notice these earlier paintings don't have a lot of the fine detail that some of his later work did. It's still great, though. Interior art by Jesus Duran, Jose Gual, Villanova, Jesus Susorego, Jose Rubio, Pablo Marcos, Antonio Burrell, Dennis Fujitaki, Gayan Wilson Textilos, and Felipe de la Rosa. And this is the 1974 yearbook. And the last one that we haven't looked at. The cover is by Vicente Sagreus, interior art, Jose Martin Sori as Bob Martin, Bruce Jones in a reprint, Ralph Reese in a reprint, Dennis Fujitaki in a reprint, Carlos Garzon in a reprint, Doug Wildey in a reprint, and Tom Sutton in a reprint. So you see by now they were reprint heavy on the yearbooks. So there we go. That's the last one. That covers all of the Skywald Nightmare issues. Entire run. And next, we're going to take a look at the Psycho title from Skywald. See you in a bit.